Basically, we're up and running, so I just need to make sure I'm in shot for everything. Welcome to the first episode of MEN2B with Nathan Johnston. What a pleasure it is having you here, for one. But two, I guess, considering this is the first time, we should talk about what mental health is as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So from my point of view, it's something that I kind of created from a whim, but I had the idea for a couple of years beforehand in the first lockdown. So basically the idea is a platform for people to have a community to basically just talk openly. That's kind of all we were looking for, not trying to, very cautious and very aware of not trying to do anything of the self, what's the right way to say it? Not like self-help or anything like that. It was like, I'm on the same playing field as you are, so let's kind of like learn and talk together, and maybe just be a catalyst to like guide the conversations, maybe ask the conversations. So obviously Nathan is one of my best friends anyway, and he also has been on mental health a couple of times, which is amazing for his one, support, and two, his openness and bravery. Before we get into you, Nath, and go over your story, because that's what we like to do here on mental health, is sort of break down everyone's sort of like how they're feeling and how they got there, and where their self-awareness journey is at the moment, and all sorts of things, and let the conversation go wherever it needs to go. But just from an outsider's point of view, could you explain like maybe what mental health is to you, or means to you, or how it's helped other people, kind of thing?
100%. Yeah. And I think the point of you saying that it really is a platform to talk, right? And it's a platform to be able to chat and be open, and what you do amazingly is making sure that you're not putting yourself as someone that knows more than other people, but it's very clear that you're here just to listen and talk and guide, and I think that's what's the most brilliant thing about it is to be able to come on here and just talk and chat, right? And it does help people, or I've seen a lot of people talk about how it helps people just be more open and be able to kind of voice. I know, especially for me, to be able to voice what's in my head and what's in my mind, and that's something that I've only since the past year that's gone through I've been kind of like being able to kind of start to do that, and mental health has definitely had a massive role in that, as well as yourself personally, but be able to come on here and be able to voice myself and just talk and just be open and not worry about any kind of opinions or people judging me, and just know that everyone here is to support each other, and that's something that is very rare in our world, I guess, but it's a nice place to be.
Yeah, no, I think that the kind of the reality of it is if you can speak, not only me and you speaking together, but knowing that other people are watching, it kind of takes the fear out of speaking to one-on-one person a little bit more, doesn't it? So it's kind of like a bigger leap of faith to do it with other people judging and watching. But I kind of think that I personally feel like I have this responsibility to do it and be open, because one, I don't find it too hard, if I'm honest. Like, so I have to kind of like try and, I don't know, inspire sounds like the wrong word, but at least lead by example, or lead by vulnerability, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's again something that you do quite well. Is that you are very open and you are very honest, and it's again personally and through the channel is something that's allowed me to be equally, or aim to be equally as open and honest as I know you tend to be.
Yeah, well, we love to see that, and this is off to a great start already. You've given a good testimonial of what mental health is. I hope you're seeing that there's love of comments coming through. Jim with Joe on YouTube watching. We love you, Nath. So you've got some fans kicking about already, and you haven't even started talking about yourself yet.
Well, you know.
You know what I mean. It just comes naturally. I do. That is annoying. Not annoying. I mean it in the most loving way. But everyone I ever introduced to you as a friend, they're always like, "Oh my god, I love Nathan so much." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. He's mine. Leave him alone." So that brings us on to kind of how we know each other, Nath.
Yeah.
For one, and then two, also like just talk us a little bit about. For those of you who don't know, like mental health has been running on Instagram since lockdown one. So there has been a lot of amazing conversations. At one point, we were doing it every single day to give people a bit of, stability and sort of a schedule, like a checkpoint to put their day around, and myself included. Like it was really, really helpful for me. And even at one point, it got a little bit too much of doing it every day. Like it was a lot, because a lot of the conversations were very sort of emotional, and that's an amazing thing. But so some of the guests that will be coming on this series now on the podcast have done this before. So I always like to remind the guests that people, we don't like talking about ourselves, but people are always really interested in stories. And if you imagine you're listening to someone else's story, you kind of want to know like what makes them tick and kind of what has made them the way that they are, and so we can learn together. And yeah, so basically, I'm just trying to reassure you, Nathan. If you feel like you're repeating yourself, don't worry about it at all.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, take it away from the beginning, as early as you want to go, and
as early as.
Yeah.
So originally I'm from Middlesbrough, as are you. And we, not we, let's go earlier. You like early, don't you?
Yeah, I like early. I love the early stuff. Because people
so,
always, that's what's really interesting. Do you not find that when people like ask you about, people always skip the like formative childhood years. You like kind of start from where you feel like your adult life began.
Yeah,
100%. Everyone skips that bit. I don't know why.
It's because I guess it's something to do with like, well, who cares about when I was a kid? Like, I barely remember it.
Yeah, that is also is the. I always find this is really a lot of the guests who come on are cathartic because not really sit and think and walk and talk through your own childhood and how far you've came, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess as well, it depends on where you start to think about where your life began, or and maybe you're very different from when you were a child, which I know that I definitely am. But I'll go early for you, just for you.
Thank you. Sir.
So yeah, I'm from Middlesbrough, and I grew up in a place called Grove Hill, which was a very, very rough place to grow up. And yeah, I went through my studies, found some very good friends, and I started playing rugby at an older age, like 13, 14. I played rugby for a long time. Grew up with my mother, brother, and sister, and I was basically one of the first people in my family to go to college. And I just before college, I started playing rugby, and I remember in my GCSEs, I had to choose what I wanted to do in my GCSEs, and as a boy back in the day, thought what's going to be the easiest thing I could do, because easiest thing equals less work. And I chose. I mean, that was my thought behind it. And I chose dance because I thought dance is easy, and I'm a class dancer. So, so yeah, and that's when I started doing dance when I was 14, and I chose my GCSEs. Ended up falling in love with dance. Something I found this passion within the industry, and for a good few years, I was doing dance and rugby at the same time. I'd come into rehearsals with a black eye, and I'd be like dancing around people on the pitch. So it was quite a good mix. But eventually, I had to take a choice, and I chose dance, obviously, and well, not obviously to you.
Yeah.
And it was around the same time that we met. At that point when I just went to college, and I I joined Janice Wilson's, which is a dance school in Middlesbrough, um, because of Nicola Scott Hughes, who was my dance teacher in college and also the dance teacher at Janice Wilson's. And yeah, and that's where we met each other. And I mean, we've never looked back really, have we? We came super close, super
No,
quick, actually.
yeah, unfortunately, I've not been able to shake you off yet, and it's been nearly 15 years.
Don't
Well,
pretend that you
probably
want me
probably has
away.
been 15 years. I'm just getting anxious because I turn 30 next month, mate.
Yeah, you are. Are you ready for it?
Oh yeah, it's
Welcome.
going to be a wild party in lockdown. But yeah, that's what we kind of met. I'd already been dancing quite a few years, and you came in as the big rugby lad. So it was kind of like a mutual respect where I'd had more experience dancing, but also you were older and cooler. Do you know what I mean? So there was that definitely that mutual respect to start off with, and then yeah, we both luckily got into college and went to London at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's when you, I guess, started taking things, I guess, like we both did, more seriously. It became less of a hobby and more of a career.
Yeah, 100%. And it's somewhere where I never thought I'd end up, to be honest. But hey ho, things happen how they do, and yeah, and I mean, I couldn't um want anything else. You know, I had a career in dance. Not had, still have. I know it's a hard time, but it's still there. I swear.
Yeah, the
uh,
industry, for those who don't know, is on dire straits at the moment. There's not much dance work, nor theatres open, nor anything
mm,
really.
mm.
But yeah, if anything crops up to anyone who's watching on the multiple platforms now we have, if you've got any questions, feel free to fire them in the chat on Facebook, YouTube, or on Instagram, and we will get to them as it goes along. Um, hey Lee, saw you jumping in, and Agatha, thanks for people who are jumping in. Um, yeah, so you went to college, you trained for 3 years, and then kind of, has it been a wild ride or easy since you graduated? There's always that thing of being self-employed. A lot of the people that end up coming on mental health are my initially have been my circle of friends, and have a lot of self-employed friends. So I kind of definitely empathise with it a lot.
Mm.
Um, but you tell us what it's been like, because I'm sure it would, if you actually told us everything you've done for the last 10 years, we'd be here all day.
Be a waste of an hour, really. Um, um, since graduating, I mean, it's had its ups and downs as everyone has. I think as my years have passed, it's got easier and easier and easier until 2020. Thank you. But you know, I started out. I got quite lucky. Went straight into work. Then it dipped quite a few years, and then I found myself in kind of this place where I was kind of rolling into work quite quite well, which you know is not an easy thing to do, and I don't know how it happened, but it happened, and you know it's I always find that I just be me and do as much as I can, and it just seemed to work, and yeah, so it was pretty well. It was going well, to be honest, before 2020, and you know, I say going well. It's not like I've got a limo parked outside and you know, I'm still a freelance performer, and I think that it's gone as well as it could have gone for me. Obviously, things can go much better, but I wasn't
Hmm.
wanting for much, and I was pretty happy in the way things were rolling in. I was doing lots of different styles of performing, of teaching, choreographing. I'm not. I found myself like kind of invigorated from a lot of different things that I was doing in my career, which is a really good thing.
Well, I was just about to say that, as in you slyly mentioned about, oh, I was just being myself, and how the two marry up, as in you said it's been going well, because I think it's to do. I can very much cheat a lot here as a host because I know you so well. So it's a lot easier for me to do my job than it is compared to if the guest is a complete stranger. But your like morals and who you are and stuff is like, you just kind of outlined it there by being modest about, like, it's not about having those materialistic things, and you found it easy because you've got by doing something that you love. Do you know what I mean? And that's what's kind of powerful and important. And you've got employed constantly because of how much of a decent bloke you are, in contrast to potentially how people from where you're from might tend to fall into.
I mean, and that's the thing. Like, don't get me wrong. I spent a lot of my early career and when I was training, to be honest, is what when I was um, suddenly around all these male performers that were slim, six packs, really flexible, amazing technique, and then there's me, this rugby guy, who is very inflexible, never done ballet in his life, and loves a beer or nine. So I've never had a six pack. I've never been, I struggled for quite a lot of years comparing myself to that, and it's still very apparent in both contemporary and in all other styles of dance that it's very very much a thing, and more so in contemporary than I thought it was actually, but it is a thing. And I think it was actually when I decided or started to realize that I'm good at the shit that I do, regardless of me not having a six pack, which I'll never have. Do you know what I mean? I've got things that other people don't, and that's what I need to, and I needed to remember basically is that I'm stronger than your average person, and that was a big tick for me. And that's I think that's something that's really important in general, is to remember that. I mean, comparison is always the worst thing to do, and I know it's easy just to say that, but we all do it. But it is the worst thing to do, because no one will ever be me, but I'll never be someone else either. And it's so important to remember that. And I guess after like 3 or 4 years, I really start to think about it. Every now and again, I still have my dips, and I think about, oh, what this person, but definitely since I started to kind of think about me and what I do and what I'm good at, and am I happy with who I am? Yeah. Do I love beer? Yeah. Am I gonna get a six pack? Never. I'll never get a six pack ever, because I'm not willing to push myself to have one, because I don't really want one. Do you know what I mean? It's like that thing of going, I will be healthy and I'll be fit, but that's very different to having a specific physique that you want to look like. And there's nothing wrong with it at all. But but for me, like that was what was kind of plaguing my thoughts a little bit, and it's if it's something that's not good for your brain, then I think you need to find a way to kind of get past it or work with it.
Yeah, no, definitely, and that was a really interesting point you brought up about sort of one, obviously, your thoughts towards your own body image, but secondly, that just because somebody looks a certain way doesn't mean they're necessarily healthier than someone who looks another way. Like there's definite, there's been times where I've looked good on the outside, and I can tell you right now, my arteries are close to being clogged up from like eating too much junk food and biscuits and whatever. So it definitely is not a match. But for those who don't know, and I often start with the 4 pillars of wellness, the nutrition is a massive one. Nutrition and movement. If you're looking after your body well, you're getting your sleep and you're doing these things, then how you feel is what's important. If you feel like you're fit and healthy, and your immune system feels good, and you're not getting ill and stuff like that, then it's definitely a better place to rate it than what you see in the mirror.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Speaking of what you see in the mirror, learning from past mistakes, learning from the summer, and obviously holding my hand up at all times when, I'm learning just as much as everyone else. And I think it's important, like I said, making an example of being vulnerable, and also not being afraid to be wrong in conversations. It's quite safe to say that you definitely were of a minority from where you grew up, right? So for those who don't know, Middlesbrough and the area that Nathan was very. Would you agree that it's generally white working class?
In the specific area I grew up, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 100%.
So, what were the challenges or interests or things that you've looked back on now from learning what you've learned? Because you already just said about, and I think everyone goes through it. You go through this phase of when maybe it's through puberty or whatever that everyone feels like they want to be accepted. Like I've definitely been there, try to do things to try and be cool or whatever it is, make girls laugh or boys laugh or whatever, or copy people to try and fit in or super interesting that everyone tends to go through that, and then the older you get, gladly, and a lot of people I know just start to like accept themselves like a lot more for all the different variables that they have, and even if they don't marry together, and even if they don't like, you've got interests that are completely different from what your occupation is. All these interesting combinations. People seem to accept them more. So one, self-acceptance in general in that way, but also not saying that you've ever had to go through self-acceptance. That's not what I'm implying, but I just mean that maturity and that growth looking back now, how it was maybe.
I guess there's kind of how can I put it? There's I guess like kind of two strands. When I'm thinking about that, I guess it's like the first one being being a mixed race man. I grew up. So I don't know my dad. Never met him. And my mum's white. So I grew up with my mum's side of the family, and everyone's white, apart from my brother and my sister who are also mixed race. But we all three grew up in a white family, and everyone around me in my street was white. Everyone in my friendship circle was white, apart from one guy. So I just grew up in a just surrounded by white people. Fine. So I guess that with that being said, I didn't know any. It's tough to say, but I guess I didn't know any better,
Yeah,
right? Because I
yeah.
had
Because everyone's a result of their upbringing, right? Until
yeah
you have a chance to be educated, and when you're young, you're not thinking through potentially fault of other people, education system or whatever. You're not thinking about educating yourself on these
yeah.
things. It doesn't, why would you?
So it ended up being that a lot of the time there's comments or things been said, jokes, things that I not let slide, but I just accepted as okay. Because you're all my friends or you're my family or whatever, and it's okay because obviously you don't mean anything kind of offensive, and I didn't find it offensive at that point in my life because it didn't feel offensive. And I used to say things about other people that are definitely very offensive,
Mm.
but because I grew up in the world that I grew up in, it's just what you said. And it wasn't until I moved away when I start to realize, and I kind of moved down south, and then, and especially in London where it's a mixed pot of just like so many different cultures, colored people, and you go, oh shit, yo, no, I can't say that. And you go, oh no, yeah, I used to say that. I can't say that. And you start to learn. And I started
Yeah,
to learn that this isn't okay to say and this isn't okay to say. And then reflecting back on myself and going, oh my God, I can't believe I let people say that about me or to me or this was my name. And like, if anyone said some of these things to me now, I don't know what like. It's a very different story. Do you know what I mean? But I guess it's just a thing. Also, the times have moved on as well. You know, a little bit in terms of people are starting to be a lot more kind of open and start to realize things a lot more. So I guess yeah, I didn't. I guess when I was actually growing up, I didn't feel the challenge. It's now that I'm looking back on my life, then is that I see them.
yeah. Which I guess is kind of a bit of a blessing, if that's the maybe. Like it didn't feel torturous at the time,
No,
but it doesn't mean that you haven't, you know, that it's had an effect on you either.
no,
Like
no.
these things, yeah. So that's the hard balance.
But I look
Yeah,
back and I think now that I look back, I can identify times where I might have been actually probably struggling a little bit, but I didn't notice it was a struggle.
yeah,
I didn't it wasn't like a thing. But I look back on my younger self and go, yeah, that was tough for me, you know. Um, but I didn't it couldn't wasn't something I could register at the time.
yeah. And it's yeah, having those tools to want to be aware of it, to how to process it, and like that's why I think that a lot of men in general struggle with, you know, anger and all these other things that come out because they don't know how to process these emotions, or just speak about them,
Mm.
which is kind of like the whole theme of mental health, if you haven't guessed already, for anyone who's watched. Um, but yeah, so that brings us on to, I guess, um, you also mentioned about um, finding motivation, acceptance. I know, for example, you're now doing SNC for dance to
Hmm.
help others. So that is kind of, I'll let you tell us about that. But maybe talk about the journey of how you got there and how, if you like, maybe was struggling for motivation maybe before that, and then just like I do with this, I think it mirrors it in a lot of way. Like I get a lot of positive effects from at least trying. I'm not saying
Mm.
that I am, but trying to help other people. Kind of, there's this myth around like selfless acts. Like I'm not trying to ever suggest that what I do on this platform, if somebody messaged me and says that they could recognize an episode or it's helped them with something, then it makes me feel good. I want to try and help people. That's what I'm trying to do it for.
Mm.
So tell us a little bit about SNC dance.
Uh, so SNC for dance is basically stands for strength and conditioning for dancers, and it came about actually. Um, so it came about my friend Nico Hanakam, who is
Mhm.
a very good friend of mine, and he is a trained fitness coach, and he does a trained CrossFit coach, nutritionist, and so on. He was a dancer beforehand. I've worked with him quite a lot, quite a few times in our past, and it came about because I myself, I probably, much like a lot of people that are watching or listening, have gone like through dips and curvatures, and I'm gonna work out and I do 3 weeks and then I go whoo, and then I fall off and then I fall back on and do it. So I'm constantly going through this, and Nico's always been someone that helps me with that. And he's
Like getting back on track, like when you fall
exactly.
off. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's someone that has always been very dedicated to training people, and I guess it came from conversations we've had before, whereas I teach. I teach quite a lot in universities and so on, and we are having this conversation about how I find that a lot in my classes that I have to almost train my students to be able to do my class. Train physically in terms of fitness and strength and conditioning in
Yeah.
order to be able to do my class technically.
Yes.
Um, and
So
then also,
there's layers and foundations potentially
yeah,
missing not through any fault of their own, but through the
no,
training that they've had, have not hit those points that
but it's
maybe
just,
that you need for your style. Or
yeah, I'd say it's just a miss in education in general. It's like, I know you get a strength and fitness class, but there's not a kind of, uh, um, what do you call it? Like
like a practical application kind of thing.
yeah, and just how to kind of generate a fitness and strength and conditioning lifestyle, Not saying that you have to hit the gym every day, but working out 4 times a week, 3 times a week, and making sure you keep that fitness up. But yeah, anyway, tangent.
Some of your students are going to be coming in watching this now and going, "Oh, really? Was I that bad?"
Yeah, it's all about you guys. No, but it's just a general thing, and I think not only for students, but also professionals. And I've been in shows before. I've been one of them before, where you go, you're expected to do the show, and I'm breathing out my ass. 35 minutes later, almost dying, and it's like I should be doing that in rehearsals, not in performance. And to be able to be fit enough, like everyone gets tired, of course, but it's like, at what level are you tired? Are you like dying tired, or are you just tired because you worked out? And I guess it came from that place, and we kind of start talking about, what do we think the industry needs in terms of strength conditioning and stuff like that. And yeah, and we kind of just figured that we both have been and are performers, and we've had between us 20 years in the industry. So we just thought it was a good kind of place to go from and to help. And with me being a teacher as well, I think it just felt like a right place to start and to try and get dancers or performers or movers to kind of join in this strength and conditioning world, where we kind of just create this habit of training, I guess. And yeah, and it's a course where it's not a course, it's a program where you can join, and you pay a monthly fee, very, very little, a little bit of advertising here.
Yeah, that's what it's for, mate. Get your plug in. We're a podcast now, So
yeah, well, there you go.
We're not sponsored by anyone just yet, so this is the advertisement break.
Yeah,
free sponsorship. Get the ad in. Get the plug in. Why not?
It's basically
I'm going to put it on the screen for everyone. What's the Instagram handle? Is it SNC4Dance?
SNC4Dance, yeah. And basically, yeah, it's either it's £15 a month for 3 days a week of general strength and fitness, or you can pay £30 a month. No, £15 a month, sorry, or you can pay £30 a month for a personalized training program 4 days a week. And personalized means that we can adapt the training schedule for what you need, where you are, any injuries and stuff like that. So, it's on there. I can see it. If you're interested, come and join us. Basically, yeah.
So how has it helped you helping others?
I love helping others, and it's something I've realized. I mean, I guess it's stemmed from teaching, because I've loved teaching for years. It's one of my
about that, and something that we haven't spoke about, which we're supposed to do at the beginning, considering we're rewinding and doing this all again. my initial questions, and if you listen to the other episodes, I'll probably slip it in a lot earlier, but I like to ask my guests what they're passionate about with the thought in mind. So what would you sacrifice or suffer for? But I won't interrupt you too much, because I know you're going on to that about teaching.
Yeah, it's I guess it stemmed from there, because teaching is a big passion of mine, and it's something that I really love. Excuse me. And what I didn't realize is teaching is also helping people in whatever way. It's helping people to further their goals, to further their technique, and get to where they want professionally, or and I guess SNC is the same thing. It's helping people achieve something that maybe they wouldn't have before, or might not have thought about before, or they needed help with, that I can push them forward. And don't get me wrong, I'm not massively fitness qualified at all. That's where Nico comes in, because Nico is qualified, and he's worked hard for these qualifications and still is. But I'm just a genuine lover of helping and pushing people forward in that sense. And so the more people I can get in, I can kind of bring people in and help them forward with it. But any technical stuff is Nico. But I get a massive buzz out of helping, whether it be just sitting down with a chat, and that's actually come from you quite a lot, is to be able to sit down and just talk to people and listen, and that's something new, I guess.
Yeah. So some of the standout points there is that sort of teaming up with someone that has complementary skills to you as well.
Yeah, 100%.
That
100%.
teamwork and knowing that helps with accountability to get stuff done for motivation. So I like that a lot. And I'm guessing, do you feel more in the routine with your own fitness now because of it also?
Yeah, I've actually enrolled in the SNC Fitness, SNC for Dance program, so I'm part of it, and it came
Proof
about
in the
because
pudding.
exactly, it is because it's like, you know, if we're preaching this, I need to be able to do it as well, and I'm doing it, you know. So I'd miss some days. It's just been Christmas, so you know, but that's my plan is to be able to take part in it, and it does make me want to be better in order for me to help people be better,
Yeah,
right? Because
definitely.
I could sit on my house all day and preach, but if I'm not gonna put my money where my mouth is, then why? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. So it is, and teamwork and knowing what your unique selling point is. This is not supposed to be a business podcast. I don't know why I'm going in this direction, but it's just helpful, isn't it, for motivation, knowing exactly what you're trying to specifically help. Like there's not. I'm sure there are some things, but there's not that much out there that's very specifically aimed at dancers, at the skills and
Mm.
certain particular strengths that you need. So we're a big fan of that at Mental Health here, SNC for dance. So go check that out if you are a dancer or want to be a dancer or want to train like a dancer. Um, but more, let's wind it back into some of the things that mental health are known for. And you did mention about having these open conversations, and that you
Mm.
found it a lot more accessible to you in your skill set, tool set now as a person.
Yeah.
And I remember actually one of the first moments where I started practicing it was with you. Like a long 3 or 4 years ago, we were sat at a pub in Greenwich,
Yeah.
and I just made this conscious decision to. I'd read an article about listening, um, and I just made a conscious decision to practice it, and it was just magic. As in, for those who don't know Nathan or haven't for a longer time, like you said, something you've really improved on. Like you never used to feel as comfortable with it, and always jump in if I'm putting any words in your mouth that you don't
No,
agree
no,
with.
not at all. Mm.
Um, so I had this moment of practicing this listening, and I just, for me, that's, I've had been asked now before. I've like been on a few other people's channels, and what's the number one tip you would have from like mental health or improving yourself? I was like, well, just be the kind of person that you want to deal with, and I think everything stems from listening. If you can create a platform and permission for other people to talk, then you're going to have the same permission back. Like it's going to be like a two-way street. Um, so I was thinking that we probably, because it's the first podcast, we'll go through those levels of listening.
Absolutely.
So number one, obviously ignoring. That's the worst type of listening. Yeah, that's the opposite of listening. So we don't want that. Number two, do you know these? I'm gonna put you
No,
on the spot.
you don't. Why would you do that?
Just because it's fun to do. So the next one is
Passive listening.
selective listening.
That's what I said.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you said. Don't get it twisted. Selective listening. So sometimes you're ignoring, and sometimes you're like doing a bit of not normal listening, whatever you want to call it. Then you've got the thing is, I might have forgotten them myself now.
I was going
No,
to say, do you remember the bit?
do I remember them? You've got the middle one, whatever's that called, which is just listening in general. Then you've got attentive listening, where you're really trying your best. You're giving eye contact. You're in the conversation, but sometimes you'll be still, even though you're listening, even though you're really present, you'll be waiting to say what you want to say, or your projections of your own opinions, or something along those lines, which I used to do a lot, and still do. It's just having that awareness to like catch yourself doing it.
Isn't that the most common? Is that the most common one? Where you are listening to someone waiting to say what you want to say?
I
I don't
wouldn't
know if
say it's
that's
the
true.
most. Yeah, I don't know if it's the most common, but people's favorite subject to talk about is themselves.
Mm.
It's like I'd even agree with that myself. Like definitely, I don't think there's shame in saying that. You have to have a sort of level of protection, and um, but yeah, the top level, really going through these really concisely, is empathetic listening. So actually taking the time to step into somebody else's shoes, and actually don't think about whether you agree with them or not, because that's a lot of people's conversations or retorts sit in that place of whether you would do the same thing or you agree with them or what your opinion is. But just try and think of what their opinion is, how they got to it, what experiences, and also not even just what they're saying, what they're communicating, like with their body language, and if it means more to them than they're making out. And if you can, um, there is actually a level above that. It's like some really complicated word called phenomenological. I learned that from one of our previous guests, but I can't spell it to type it in the chat, so we've got no chance.
Google it. Google it.
Yeah, Google it if you can spell it. It begins with PH. Phenomenological. But yeah, that's a really tough skill to have, and that's something I'm always working towards. And obviously, doing this, I try and switch between the two, so I can still guide the conversation, but still in moments slip into that empathetic listening. But do you feel like that's been a big tool and a step for you? Is that platform as well? Like
Yeah,
foundation.
100%. Firstly, the biggest thing that I mentioned it earlier, but the biggest thing for me is knowing that people will listen.
Okay,
Is a
that's
big thing
interesting.
for me. That I guess the reason I kept things. For those of you that don't know, again, I was very much someone that didn't share. It's not like I share everything now, because I can't just switch it off. But I'm definitely much more of a sharer, and I'm much more likely to just let you know what's bothering me, or if there's something up, or I'll just be more honest, basically. Um, but I think that maybe that a lot of the stuff that kept me from sharing these things is the idea that people didn't want to listen, or it's not something important to them, and stuff like that. And I guess that's again come from the fact that I want to listen as well, and to understand what people are saying. And especially as a teacher, I found that it's become a very useful tool to not only be able to understand the students more, and listen to what they have to say, but also knowing what they need, or being more open to provide what they need in terms
Mm.
of mentally and physically, and what they need in day to day in my class, outside of class. And it's just made me much more aware about the people I'm around, and the people I'm coming into contact with, and working closely with.
Yeah, mate. It is sometimes when it's just that moment. Sometimes when you're right, okay, I'm going to concentrate on aiming towards that, and then you just see it happen in front of your face, and you go, "Oof, God, it does work actually."
Yeah, yeah. Oh, why
It's
did I try
scary.
that earlier?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Graham, on Instagram, with the spelling of phenomenological there.
Of
Say
course,
that
Graham.
10 times
Of
fast.
course.
Love that. Um, yeah, so that's something that this whole basically I really believe in, and I'm out of practice saying it, I guess, because I used to say it at the beginning of every episode during lockdown.
Yeah.
Um, but that's something that I really really believe in, is listening. So that's one thing that I'm going to try, and you know I have to just get better and better at that for hosting these things. And it's it's not always easy. I tell you that
No.
it's not easy, because sometimes wandering elsewhere, if you've got stuff going on in your life. That's why you also said about leading by example with SNC for dance. And remember, there's been times when doing this, I felt like I've had to take time off myself because I can't practice or like stand for wellness and looking after yourself, putting yourself first and giving yourself the time that you need, the acceptance that you need of how you feel, and all these lessons that we've learned together from all the guests, and then not apply them to myself and like try and put on. And we both like if you've been tuned in for a while, know that both Nathan and I are from a dance background, and you've got this. I think it's a lot. I think there's a lot of mental health issues within that industry and acting and performing in sense. One, because of the type of person that adhere to those, those industries potentially. Like I know, I'm just speaking from my own point of view, are looking for like external gratification or in that manner, and then you also have the ability, a dangerous ability to have to put on a front.
Yep.
Like
easy.
The saying is in the dance industry is the show must go on, and and that very much bleeds into people's everyday life, I think.
It's small things like as a dancer or performer or whatever. How often do we still perform on an injury or work on an injury? Rather than actually just taking the time off and letting your body heal. I've been living with an injury for I don't know how long. And it's these things that it's like, actually, if you just say no, actually, for a little bit, you might be better off. But it's because, as well, the industry we're in, it's so tough. And, we need the jobs and we need to keep working. So taking time off because of injuries, it's not always possible or viable, or you don't want to do it just in case. It's all these things about sometimes you need to,
Yeah, definitely. You need to. You mentioned about saying no there. Yeah. And I think that's something that I've learned later on in life is you find yourself in situations all the time, whether it's an employer, your friends, or whatever it is, sometimes you end up doing things that you don't want to do. And I'm talking about everything I speak about is like comes with balance. I'm not saying about like compromise goes out the window, be a selfish person, only ever do what you want to do. But sometimes you kind of need to like make decisions that are steering you in a different direction or that you feel strongly about. And the fear is from not doing that is change or upsetting people or setting your own boundaries and saying no is it's really tough. It's really weirdly tough for some reason.
I remember the first time I said no. The very first time, professionally.
Yeah.
It must have been about 4 years ago, which is quite late on, right? In my career. And we were doing a performance outdoors, and it was on a car and it was at night. And it was quite cold. So it was a lot of like dew. Do you call it dew? Like where the car gets wet?
Yeah, that would work. It's really, I can sense that dewy car right now.
Do you know what I mean? And we were just rehearsing, and I stepped on it, and my foot slipped. I was like, "Nope, I'm not doing it. No." They're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we won't do it." I was like, "What, is that easy?" But it was the first time that I kind of was like, "No, this is dangerous. Not doing it." Because a few years before, I'd done performances outdoors where it was raining and it was slippy and people were slipping all over, and I was like, "This is nuts," but I'm going to do it because everyone else is doing it. And it's the first time I've actually went, "No, actually, this isn't okay. I'm not doing it," and it was fine,
And I think that speaks for hopefully people. I know we're speaking quite focused on a dance. I like to think of it as like an analogy or example, but they still, all these sorts of the lessons they run through in everyday life as well of, one, not to mention consent, that's a whole different story, but just learning to say no when people are expecting you to do something. But you always be surprised. I found it lately that sometimes people are so, especially at the moment with everything being up in the air and everything being a bit uncertain, I think that's one thing that we could potentially all agree on is that there's so much uncertainty and it makes it really difficult to, stay focused or stay positive, which is exhausting at the best of times.
Yeah.
People always, I found, like if I speak to them and it's not necessarily something that you think that they don't want to hear, they actually come back with gratitude for the communication, gratitude for like, oh, speaking how you really feel, or being open in that regard. So it's just getting in the habit and testing it out, because we're deep down, a lot of us, when it comes to that, seeking, acceptance, we're like people, we're people pleasers, aren't we? We don't. It's not nice to upset someone. Nobody wants
No,
to do that.
no one goes out the way to do it.
But yeah,
Well, some people might, but
yeah, no one that is appearing on mental health. That'd be
Not me anyway.
yeah. But I don't know, mate. It's definitely a tough one. One of the other classic questions, and I think I might know where this might go. Actually, I love predicting, like Mystic Meg.
Can't wait until you're wrong.
Okay. To normalize this question for blokes in general to like be comfortable with their feelings is when the last time you cried was.
The last time I cried.
Yeah.
The last time I cried was about 2 months ago. And this is why you are wrong, because you don't know this.
Okay.
Last time I cried was about 2 months ago. I was very, very drunk. And I was explaining a situation to my friend that was very uncomfortable for me. And I just started crying. And now, and this is something that's true, and it's not because I choose to, but I very, very rarely cry when I'm sober. Very rarely. And not because I don't want to or I stop myself. I just don't.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, that's not uncommon. That's very common in especially men. But as soon as I'm really drunk and I'm talking about a sensitive subject, I will bawl my eyes out. It just doesn't seem to happen when I'm sober, unless it's like a dire situation.
Yeah. Which is in itself, it's hard to get your head around, especially like if you feel like it's a barrier that you don't want to be there, kind of thing. You like, it'd be nicer to be able to let emotions out a little bit,
Yeah,
little bit by little, or drip feed it, or like exercise emotions in that way. And sometimes it takes a bigger catalyst, or but the fact go on.
But honestly, there's been times where I've been watching a film or a series or something, and it's hit me emotionally, and I can feel, behind the eyes. It's like where you start to well up slightly. I'm like, shit, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. Oh fuck, I didn't. Just because I've thought about the fact that I'm gonna cry, I'm like willing myself to cry because I think it's gonna be good for me.
Yeah, like egging yourself on, like, it's finally happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I love about that question as well? Is that I didn't actually ask you why you cried, but people always, even just ask, like learning how to ask the right questions with the right tone at the right time is like, you not only told me the last time you cried, but you told me why you cried as well. You told me the situation it was in, and people just, like you're saying, is knowing that somebody's there to listen and having that space and just boom, straight in, open.
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing is, I'm not ashamed that I cried.
No.
And I've never been ashamed that I cried. Like I'll happily cry if I want to cry, I'll cry. Or if I do cry, I cry about anything. It doesn't matter what it's about. And it's a very old stigma, but there's still that stigma of men and crying, and the fact that we shouldn't really, or we shouldn't as much as women do, which is ridiculous. But there's that whole thing around it, which is a massive shame, obviously.
See, I thought you were going to say that you had happy tears recently.
No, I didn't. I didn't cry.
Your better half cry?
She didn't cry either. She's listening. He's watching this. You didn't cry, man. You know you didn't.
The only reason I bring it up is because you put it on social media now.
Yeah,
So
yeah, of course, of course, of course. So, for everyone listening, I recently got engaged.
congrats in the chat, everyone, please. Boop, boop. It's going to be
Thank
a
you.
big man.
But for a good weeks after, she's like, yeah, I still haven't cried. I don't know why. I just haven't cried. she's like finding things to make herself cry.
You find her in the kitchen just chopping up onions.
Yeah,
Going,
yeah.
oh,
What are
I'm
you
so
doing?
happy you proposed to me.
Breakfast. I just want to cry.
No, but it is. I love that that's happened for you as well. Like, I'm happy for you, and it's one of those things that you really wanted to do, not only for yourself but for her as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of marriage and getting married is previously, obviously, has always been something for me that's just I've never kind of wanted it. I've never been interested in it. I've never kind of pushed it. And for a good few years, when we first got together, it didn't really cross my mind. And then a few drunken chats that you might not remember. There was mentions and things coming up, and I was like, oh, yeah, I don't know. And then for the past few years, it's definitely been on my mind, and it was just a time. I guess it was the idea of we've just moved into a beautiful new house. It was 2020, so our past relationship was pretty much been like we're off touring other places and not spending that much time together and being very separate and then come together for a little bit. But this is the first time we've like spent months and months and months and months in the same house. And it was great, really, really good. And the fact that it was the first Christmas we've ever had together. And it just felt like the right time. It just felt like everything was kind of accumulating to this moment, and it just felt right. And then, yeah, I did it for me, and I did it for her, and us really, I guess.
Yeah. Did I just disappear then for a second? Sorry. But yeah, no, mate, massive congratulations on that. We're going to actually wrap things up now. I think we've been going for an hour or so.
All right, ready.
Wow. Time flies, I know, right?
It always blows my mind how quick this goes.
Well, hopefully that was a success in the sense of that we managed to get out to different platforms and start building some audiences there. Those who are listening back on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, then welcome to the first episode first ep. Broke my virginity, mate. Love that.
Two Borough lads, obviously.
Good man. Thanks for everyone who's jumped in as always, and I guess we'll see you on Thursday for Man to Man with Lee, and then next Monday as well for another guest. So put them in your diaries. 9 p.m. If you want to watch us live, 9 p.m. Mondays, 9 p.m. Thursdays. If not, they'll be on the days afterwards, uploaded onto podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. All right, man. We'll have a lovely evening. Thank you for sharing your time, emotion, energy. It's a pleasure as always. And I look forward to when we can see each other and have a beer in real life, whenever the hell that might be.
Always, man. Yeah, absolutely. And always a pleasure to be on this page, man. It's so important what you do and keep doing and have been doing. Like, I love it so much. And anyone that kind of think this might be helpful for anyone else, do share it, man, because what goes on this page is really, really useful, and it's helped me a lot.
Thank you. Lots of love, and I'll see everyone soon.
Catch you later, boys. Bye.